but we need those answers.
Neufeld says the deep grief that the community is experiencing will resonate for years to come. The BC Greens are also voicing its support for the province to undertake the public inquiry. And the BC government has announced this year's increase to minimum wage. Starting June 1st, it will increase by 40 cents to $18.25 an hour. Minimum wages in BC are among the highest in the country. That's according to the Retail Council of Canada. The province, though, says the increase will start on June 1st and reflects BC's average inflation in 2025. That's it for me for now. I'm Leanne Young. Thanks for watching.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim is facing backlash after making unsubstantiated claims that a city councillor was distributing drugs just days after he praised Councillor Lenny Joe for apologizing and walking back similar allegations. So what does that say about accountability and leadership at City Hall? And get your questions ready, because Brian Minter will be joining us in our second half to help you get your garden growing. I'm Amy Bell, in for Michelle Elliott, and this is BC Today. And thank you for joining us on radio, TV, and on live stream. You can call us now on our top story. What do you want to see from the mayor and his ABC party now? Our number is 604-669-3733. You can also call 1-800-825-5950 or hit pound 690. You can also email us bctoday@cbc.ca. And Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim has responded to questions after a video of him surfaced from earlier this month, making unsubstantiated claims that opposition councillor Sean Orr distributed illegal drugs on Christmas Day.
Okay, Mayor, first of all, we'll get to this stuff in a minute, but obviously there's the Lenny Joe controversy. There's video of you saying the same thing. He had to apologize for. How do you own that? What do you want to say?
Yeah, look, I spoke with Councillor Orr yesterday, and I apologize for my comments.
What evidence do you have to even make those claims?
You know, I called Sean or Councillor Orr yesterday, and I did apologize for my comments. So,
where do those comments come from?
Like I said, you know, I called Councillor Orr, and I did apologize for those comments.
Don't you believe it's irresponsible, though, as a leader to say those comments without actually fact-checking them?
Yeah, as a leader, I called Sean Orr, or Councillor Orr, and I apologized for my comments.
How'd that mistake happen, Ken?
You know, at the end of the day, I called Councillor Orr, and I did apologize for my comments.
Are you just going to repeat the same thing over and over again though?
You know what? I truly believe that I apologized. Look, I called Councillor Orr, and I apologized for my comments. So.
What comments are you going to make to the Chinese community to rectify this?
Well, I'm speaking to everyone right now. I'm letting everyone know that I did call Councillor Orr, and I did apologize personally for my comments.
And are you satisfied that he accepted the apology, or what was your read on it when you said that to him?
You know, that's a question you're going to have to ask Councillor Orr, but I did reach out to Councillor Orr personally, and you know, we had a conversation, and I apologized for my comments.
Why did you target Chinese community when it comes to making such disinformation?
Look, I called Councillor Orr, and I apologized for my comments.
But in your comments, you were talking to CBC's Chinese media. We see the microphone of Fairchild, and Councillor Joe also made this comment specifically in Mandarin.
I don't distinguish between media outlets. Basically, I made a comment, and I apologized for my comments. So.
But you haven't said that to English media. You're saying one thing in Chinese media, then you're saying another thing to English media. So how do you rectify that?
Well, I think the media is here today, and I'm telling everyone that I spoke with Councillor Orr, and I apologize for my comments.
You're just apologizing to Councillor Orr. What about the Chinese community or the audience that were receiving such information?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I apologize for my comments, and so, you know, everyone knows that I apologize to Councillor Orr.
How can voters trust you going into the election?
Yeah. Look, I think it's important that you know, I stand by my apology, and so I apologize to Councillor Orr, and so I don't. Well, you know, I apologize, so I don't. You know, it's a matter between Councillor Orr and myself. Our conversation. I reached out to Councillor Orr, and I apologize for my comments.
Are you going to clarify what was the information from?
Yeah.
Why did you make
Look, I basically, you know, made some comments that I apologize personally to Councillor Orr for. So.
And what was his response to your apology?
You know, that's a question for Councillor Orr. We had a personal conversation, at which time I apologized for my comments.
What kind of
And the video was originally obtained by City News and Omni of Mayor Sim making the comments to Chinese media on February 6th. It comes just days since Vancouver's ABC party dug itself out of controversy over a video Councillor Lenny Zhou posted to the social media platform WeChat. In that video, he claimed that opposition councillors were drug users and had distributed drugs. He took that video down, retracted, and apologized for the comments, saying he based them off of incorrect information. At the time, Mayor Ken Sim had thanked Councillor Zhou for apologizing and taking accountability for sharing information that was, quote, not accurate. Or joined the early edition this morning to refute the claims made by Mayor Sim, saying he was on the Sunshine Coast on Christmas Day. He told Stephen Quinn that the ABC party is using America-style rhetoric to divide Vancouverites.
My mind is racing about a lot of things, and you know, but my first thought was, okay, well, he threw Lenny under the bus, you know, but sorry, Councillor Zhou. But why did Councillor Zhou then expand it to those other councillors if this was about me the whole time? He translated the mayor's comments, you know, and that's and it also just shows poor leadership on the mayor there. And you know, the first thing I thought of was like, who does this? What kind of? I know it's politics, but who does this? This just reminded me of what's happening down south, and with the far right sort of, you know, weaponizing these things, weaponizing disinformation and spreading lies, you know, for political gain.
And our phone lines are open for you to comment on this story. What do you think about Ken Sim's comments, and what do you want to see from the mayor and his ABC party? You can call us in at 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or email bctoday@cbc.ca. And joining us now is Matthew Naylor. He is co-host of the Civic Politics podcast, Cambie Report. He's also a criminal defense lawyer. Hello, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So as we heard just off the top with that scrum, Mayor Sim from earlier, what do you make of what you heard? Clearly he has apologized to Councillor Orr.
Yes, in fact, like that's really the only thing that he's done. And while he has certainly achieved a certain amount of message discipline. There wasn't a strong effort there to take accountability for his actions or confront the fact that he was spreading misinformation or apologize to the people that he was deceiving when he was spreading this misinformation.
And you obviously have covered a lot of civic politics. Can you recall a situation like this in Vancouver politics before?
Not really. It's frankly I think Vancouver can be generally pretty proud of the fact that it has held its politicians to account, whether that's at elections or otherwise. And people tend not to do this type of thing. This is very unusual for the city of Vancouver, and it's something that I think one of the clips alluded to. This is something that we would expect to see south of the border.
And that seems to be common comments we've seen since Councillor Joe's reports or comments first came out, that this was very reminiscent of perhaps President Trump sort of putting out these untruths and having them out there without any backing. Nathan, I do want to get into more, but I do want to get to the phone lines. They've absolutely lit up. So we'll get a call now from Nathan in Vancouver. Hi, Nathan.
Hi.
Hi.
I just want to comment about what Ken Sim, in the whole incident on WeChat and Chinese media. I'm Chinese background myself. Obviously, I watch Fairchild TV also, but I watch CBC. And there's two different narratives. He's playing two cards, two sides. He's telling the Western media one thing, so what CBC is telling what you just showed earlier, but he's telling a different message. Whether it's on WeChat, WeChat's a whole different issue. I'm not even going to get into in this conversation. That has its own issues. And then you got Fairchild in the Chinese media. He's portraying a different message, and he's not retracting or apologizing.
Right.
For it. So, that misinformation continues to spread. I mean, within my own family. People are saying this. I'm like, well, do you want? Well, because they're in the people. Don't even watch TV. They're in their own world, in their own WeChat world, Asian community, or people that watch Chinese TV are in their own community. They don't even look they don't watch the Western media, so they only see one side.
So you don't feel that the comments that were put out there to the Chinese-speaking media, they're not seeing these comments today, or the facts being refuted. How did you feel watching, the mayor and Councillor Joe as a member of the community?
I'm disappointed and an embarrassment to the Chinese community. It makes Chinese community look really bad, and it's I feel like unfortunately it's pitting the Chinese community against other communities. It really, how do I say this? Yeah, he needs to put the retraction and apology on the Chinese social media and also on the Chinese TV channels. Now, I can't make a comment. I haven't watched the newest Chinese Fairchild or the Asian news yet, so I can't make a comment if he's actually done that yet. But at this point right now, from my knowledge, he hasn't done that. He hasn't publicly apologized on Chinese media.
All right. I really appreciate you calling. Thank you so much for sharing that, Nathan. And Nathan as well, I think that is a very important part of this discourse, that these messages went specifically to the Chinese-speaking communities. Why do you think that is, and why do you think that perhaps they haven't worked to dispute that in those same forums?
Well, I think that they're hoping that people are not going to pay attention to the entire media ecosystem and are hoping that they're able to run the playbook that they ran in the last election, drumming up an atmosphere of fear and concern and worry about rising crime and the negative effects of poverty on people's lives. And they feel a certain amount of freedom to tell lies, basically, to communities, and then only have to face accountability in Western media while allowing this lie to percolate and fester within a specific community.
And I do want to get a couple more calls in, but when we look at these specific comments, whether they were shared in English or Chinese, they were about specific opposition councillors and about distributing illegal drugs. What is the intention behind those marks and those people specifically, do you think?
Well, I mean, this is very clearly an attempt to smear people ahead of the election. The election is only a couple of months away, coming up this fall, and the playbook that they ran in the last election was heavily focused on crime. They're trying to implant these ideas about opposition councillors, about people who have had disagreements with them, and hoping that that's what people remember come election day, and not the fact that he had to apologize 15 times and restate that apology about, to Councillor Orr.
Right. I'll get another call in now from Anton in Bowen Island. Hi, Anton.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, of course. What are your thoughts on the whole situation with Mayor Sim?
Well, I don't expect it in any kind of situation, no political system anywhere. First of all, also in a relationship, you wouldn't really not accept this. And it's straightforward trying to defame someone. So Councillor Orr should take legal steps.
All right.
But when it comes to Sim and you, they should have resigned or just out. We cannot have this. They're politicians. What they've done is you can be sure it's intentional what you get said. And I'm really happy that about your first caller give insight into different messages we're giving out on the Chinese and the English-speaking media. And the only thing they do massive disservice to our Chinese Canadians. It's not a good thing. And for me, I would say out. Bye, Sim, bye, Xu.
All right. Thank you for that, Anton. And that is a sentiment, obviously, that will be repeated, that perhaps stepping down is the only answer for the mayor. What are your thoughts on the possibility of that happening? And, what other recourse will we see from Mayor Sim in the coming days?
I mean, I think that the mayor has conducted himself throughout his term in a fairly disgraceful manner, and I absolutely think it would be...
How so?
I don't think that he has conducted himself with the dignity of the office. I think that he has conducted himself on council in a way that has alienated council colleagues, that has alienated members of his own party to the extent that it has caused a party split, going against his own platform promises in this attempt to reverse the park board. None of those obviously are necessarily grounds for having to step down. This, however, I think would be. I think that this is simply more than is acceptable for someone who holds public office in Canada or in Vancouver, and both Councillor Joe and Mayor Sim should resign.
Can you maybe put Mayor Sim's comments into perspective from a legal standpoint? He has made incorrect, unsubstantiated claims against Councillor Orr. Where does that put him in terms of a legal standpoint? And does Councillor Orr have grounds for legal recourse?
Well, I'm not going to make a definitive statement on advising Councillor Orr. Obviously, he's going to get his own counsel, but I can say that there are two types of defamation. There's criminal defamation, and there is civil defamation under the Libel and Slander Act. And both of those might be engaged. I can't definitively say that they are not. Certainly, there has been a demonstrably untrue statement made by both the mayor and the councillor. And the retractions, at least so far, have not met the standard under the Civil Act that would help obviate and allow the councillor and the mayor to avail themselves of the defenses for public office holders or candidates. Certainly in the criminal sense, it's not for me to decide whether something's criminal defamation or not, but that's for the courts to decide. However, this is not something that I'd advise any of my clients to do, and I would say that there is considerable legal jeopardy for both of them.
All right. And of course, we'd love to have people share their thoughts. You can call us now with your thoughts on the situation with Mayor Ken Sim issuing these untrue and unsubstantiated remarks against fellow councillor or against his councillor, Sean. Or earlier this week, Councillor Lenny Zhou, of course, was apologizing for making these similar quotes. And in fact, Mayor Sim issued a statement thanking Councillor Zhou for taking responsibility for sharing information that was not true. So let us know your thoughts at 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. We've got a call from Bhupinder in Surrey. Hi, Bhupinder. What are your thoughts on Mayor Sim and his actions?
Is this Amy?
It is.
Amy, God bless. Thank you. No, CBC is doing a great job. I live in Surrey. I don't pay much attention, but I just heard that this mayor, Ken Sim, he apologized. That means there's a guilt there, right? So the apology doesn't cut it. He and his party should resign. If you check the Vancouver history, there have been many mayors, and they have their administrations. They have made a lot of mistakes, and now they are in hiding. So, with respect to this mayor, this Bitcoin, this FIFA, this VPD getting so much overtime, all these, and the zero increase in the budget, this is all BS.
All right. Well, I appreciate your candor, Bhupinder. Thank you so much. And Nathan, as he mentioned, there's a lot riding in the coming year for Mayor Sim. We've got FIFA. They just announced they want to have the new Justice Training Institute in the Old London Drugs in the Downtown Eastside. It is an election year, and I'm interested what you think what you'll be keeping an eye on from not only the mayor but members of his party in the next coming days. Do you think they're going to go into sort of damage control? Will councillors try to distance themselves from the mayor?
Well, I don't expect that Councillor Zhou or frankly Councillor Montague is going to take any kind of principled stance in this. They've demonstrated that they're fairly well tied to the mayor in whatever the mayor is doing. However, my question really is for what Councillors Meisner, Dominato, and Klassen are going to do. They ran with the mayor. They were planning, at least so far as I know, on running again with the mayor's team. Whether this is something that they consider morally acceptable or is something that would cause them to distance themselves, it will be interesting to see whether they show any moral backbone in the coming days. I'm particularly interested in seeing whether or not the councillors and the mayor who have started this continue to try and make hay out of this idea that the motion that that Councillor Zhou was responding to, this motion to reinstitute social housing, to lift the ban on creating supportive housing in the city of Vancouver, whether they're going to continue to try and use this tack of fear-mongering about basically people in poverty. I think that's a shameful way of trying to get elected.
Time for one quick last caller, and that is Keith Freeman. Hi, Keith.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm doing well. We just got about a minute left in the segment, but I want to get your thoughts in.
Okay, I'll go quick. I heard the apology in a little clip before, and there was 3 times he said he was sorry. I heard the full clip that you just played. I counted up to 9 or 10. It might have been on the low end, but I was just beside myself with that. It's difficult to hear the reporters ask their questions, but it's like you say sorry, that's one thing, but you want to know where did this come from, what was behind it, and he's just not going to say. So the thing is, I feel this is really tactical. The city election, civic elections, are not for another 8 months or so. But what he's done is he puts these little seeds of discontent, confusion out there, and this one will drop off in a month or probably way sooner than that. But there'll be another one, and it's enough in advance that people forget, but they also remember at the same time. So that's what he's doing, and it's just to do that, to apologize 9 times. I thought he had a it started to sound a little bit like a robot, and I thought there's a bit of a glitch. I'm not joking about that. I thought because I was listening on online, I thought it was being replayed, and because I was waiting on the line to speak with you folks.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's
It was a lot, and I think that was a bit confusing for many people, but I really appreciate you calling in, Matthew. Thanks for that. And of course, you are listening to BC Today, and it is coming up on 12:28. Nathan, before I let you go, there's different political parties opposing ABC and Mayor Sim, putting forward candidates to run against him as mayor this year. What might we see from them in light of what has happened and transpired this week?
Honestly, I think that the correct thing to do for them politically is just let people experience this on their own terms. Let the mayor and the councillor and ABC shoot themselves in the foot if they have to. Really, what the question for the opposition parties is are they able to cooperate in some way? Are they able to get back to the negotiating table to present a united front against Mayor Sim and his party, whatever remains of it after the next couple of days, and whether or not they'll be able to mount a strong candidate. I know one city has just announced their mayor candidate. Councillors Bly and Fry are both running for mayor, and there are other candidates as well. The Vancouver Liberal Party, for example. It's a crowded field, and there is, while I think that the mayor should probably resign now, it doesn't look like he's going to. He could very well come up the center and still win this election if the other parties don't get their act together.
All right, and I apologize. I believe I called you Nathan earlier. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us. A lot of moving parts here today. That is Matthew Naylor. He is co-host of the Civics Politics podcast, Cambie Report. He is also a criminal defense lawyer. And this is BC Today on CBC. We're on Radio 1, CBC Television, and live streaming on our website at YouTube at CBC Vancouver and on the CBC News app. And get your gardening questions ready. Brian Minter is waiting to take your calls and emails. But first, it is time for the CBC News with Rob Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. A body has been recovered from the site of a major fire in Fraser Lake in northern BC. The blaze early Sunday destroyed the Fraser Lake Inn and several other businesses. Police were told the person had re-entered the hotel, but fire and heavy smoke prevented further rescue attempts. A BC Conservative Party leadership hopeful is dropping out of the race. MLA Sheldon Clare announced he has suspended his campaign. In a social media post, Clare says a critical number of signatures for his application were made from people without party memberships or those whose memberships had lapsed. And as we've been hearing on the show, Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim says he has apologized to opposition councillor Sean Orr after accusing Orr of handing out street drugs. Sim's comments about Orr were made during a news conference near the beginning of the month. Earlier this week, ABC councillor Lenny Joe made a public apology for making similar claims about opposing councillors. And now the forecast. Snowfall warnings continue for sections of the Yellowhead Highway and the Trans-Canada. On the north coast, flurries or showers this afternoon with a high of 2. Highs to -20 with a chance of flurries in the Peace. In the central interior, flurries with a high of -1. Highs from 7 to 10 with a chance of showers in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, mainly cloudy this afternoon with a high of 12. And cloudy in the Fraser Valley, a bit of sunshine in Metro Vancouver and Greater Victoria with highs around 11. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you very much for that, Rob. I hope you have a good weekend. It's going to be lovely. It's going to be a great time to do some gardening. So we'll have Brian coming up in just a few minutes. So you can get your gardening questions in now.
Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome. Now, on yesterday's show, we asked how will changes to funding for children with disabilities affect your family? Here's a few of your emails. Andrew writes, I agree with the changes. Taxpayers shouldn't see their tax dollars being distributed directly to families who might not use it for the services the children need. The government should ensure tax dollars are used for providing services which families need and not paying families based on a disability. Sarah writes, parents are anxious because their kids have such specific needs. My daughter had to leave the school system due to total burnout from being a high-masking, undiagnosed girl. It is taking me years to support her in developing relationships with the right service providers. The support we received following her diagnosis from MCFD staff was traumatizing and made her worse. Their training was outdated in a field that is changing quickly. We had to pay privately for an assessment, and now I've had to leave my job to support her directly. I'm happy to see the AFU is being dismantled, as the methodology they used is also outdated. And Faye writes, when I started out as a new grad pediatric occupational therapist in 1991, our program provided service for all children with development disabilities through a local child development center. The program mandate was 0 to 19 years, and I saw children in the center, the preschools, and the school system. I also did limited outreach to the west coast of Vancouver Island. In my opinion, children funding based on a needs basis is more inclusive than on a diagnosis. Thank you so much for all of your comments. And we're just having a little temporary glitch getting Brian up on the line, but we've had a lot of emails from our last segment where we were discussing the comments from Mayor Ken Sim against his councillor, Sean Orr, of unsubstantiated claims that Sean Orr had been distributing drugs on Christmas Day. Mayor Ken Sim has said he apologized personally to Councillor Orr, but has provided no other comments on this. And we've had some emails. Mina Lee Johnson said, yes, he said 11 times or more, I apologize. That was not enough. Shouldn't he be charged with slander? We also had an email from Kathleen, and she says, it is clear that Ken Sim and ABC are lying to and manipulating the Chinese community with these lies and have not apologized or retracted their comments to them. And it makes me wonder what else they have been lying about. It is also clear that if Ken Sim does not resign, and if we as a city do not make him resign, he is no better than Trump. And that is from Kathleen Cross. And I believe that we are able to head to Brian Minter now. He is here with his gardening advice, as always, and to take your questions, call us at 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell, or email bctoday@cbc.ca. And Brian, of course, joins us now from Country Garden Limited in Chilliwack. Hi, Brian. Nice to finally get you here.
Hi. Okay. You know, we're coming into the month of March, and March is the most fickle month of the year. You know the old saying, in like a lion, out like a lamb?
Yes.
March can turn around so quickly, and that's why, and folks are ready to plant. Like, you know, it's okay, winter's been here long enough, we want to get things in the ground. And that's really what I want to talk about today, because if the soil is good and not too wet, and with the weather storms we've been having in terms of atmospheric rivers and lots of moisture, you need to let the soil dry out a wee bit. That's very important, or amend it so it is drier. But what can we plant and what should we plant this time of year? Well, we're going to get frosts. We know that. You know, even tonight, CBC is saying that it's going to clear off and that we're going to get a frost. So you have to be prepared for that. But anything that's really hardy, and I would say, first of all, starting, and this is the usual beginning, perennial vegetables, the rhubarb, the asparagus, horseradish, all those sorts of things that, are really hardy and they can go in this time of year. And of course, you're looking at the flavorful berries we are going to have. So blueberries, for example, can be put in. Raspberries can be planted this time of year. But remember, on raspberries, it's very important that you get the ever-bearing varieties if you want to enjoy them this year. The main season varieties, that's next year. That's 2027. But for this year, ever-bearing varieties would be great. And all the currants and gooseberries and those types of berries you love to have, that's wonderful. Strawberries, I'd hold off on a little bit because most of them are bare root or just in many greenhouses getting started right now. I'd like to wait another week or two to get those in. But in terms of fruit trees, oh my gosh, a wonderful time to begin planting those right now. And just a comment on them, we always go is, do we need the dwarf or semi-dwarf, which is better? And if you're going to espalier the trees like they do in high-density planting in the Okanagan, a dwarf is okay. But for the most part, if you get a very heavy windstorm and you've got fruit on a dwarf tree, it doesn't have a strong stem. It's liable to break. You're better off with semi-dwarf trees, which have a much stronger rootstock, and just train them to be dwarf. And there's no problem in doing that. And remember, when you're planting fruit trees, people say, I want to put this tree in. I always say, well, okay, what's your pollinator for that? Because virtually every fruit tree will need a pollinator. Not too many are self-fertile. So that's another consideration when you're doing that. Perennials for color right now, oh my gosh, all the beautiful purple abricias and the white arabis are gorgeous out in the garden right now. And candy tuft is just coming into bloom. So a lot of the early perennials in bloom, they're very hardy and tough, and it's nice to get the early color, and it'll come back year after year. So perennials, yay, let's get them in, which is very important. And of course, early flowering trees, one plant I always want to have in the garden. I'm waiting for the hummingbirds to start, and the red flowering currant, King Edward VII, probably one of the best plants we could put in. It's the first plant that the hummingbirds actually go to. So that's got to be one you've got to have on your list out there. And of course, any early flowering plants, early flowering rhododendrons and azaleas, and anything that's in color early, forsythia, just about ready to start blooming. Nice to be able to have that color. They can go in right now too. Roses, to be honest with you, are just coming into garden stores now and over the next week or two. So I'd wait a week or two before I put those in. But flowering trees, if you want to have that beautiful showpiece of a flowering plum or flowering crabapple or flowering cherry, great time to be able to put those in right now, as well as shade trees. Very quickly, annuals, not much out there just yet. Violas and pansies and primulas, yes, really hard and tough, and they give you a bit of color around the porch or containers is good. And the last one is vegetables. Everybody, I want to get those onions in. I want to get the early potatoes in and so on. Hold off. Really, we've got a little bit of time on those things. And if you're worried about getting a head start, many garden places and growers have started plants, pre-started them, so you can set them out and they'll be absolutely fine. But caution, March is fickle, and we can get cold weather and frost. And so I just, yes, think about it, but make sure your soil is very open and porous and well-drained. And when you plant anything, make sure you've got a great planting hole that the roots will get going right away, and look after them. But so the starting gun, my starting gun is forsythia. As soon as I see the forsythia blooming, I know it's time to go.
We're just so eager once we see a little bit of sunshine out there and we don't have to have our heavy winter parka. We're just ready to get into the garden. So yes, hold off. And of course, if you've got calls for Brian, now is your time. Call us now at 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Brian, we've got an email from Grace, and she writes, "Happy springish. Brian, please advise me, where can someone buy young or sapling apricot or peach trees that are grown for the BC coast regions?"
Yeah, good question. We don't have, we have a few growers in the Okanagan right now. We're losing growers of fruit trees, and we have to always put this in perspective. The major growers are the ones that supply our orchardists, and of course they don't buy one tree or two tree. They, buy 50s and hundreds of certain varieties, so it's a little hard. But a couple of things, it's about getting the best varieties you can for our region. That's absolutely crucial. When we're in the coastal region, region, we want to have trees that are of a European heritage, that have a similar type of weather conditions. If you want the super sweet apples, for example, you need to have an Okanagan type climate to grow and be more successful. But in terms of apricots, the two I would recommend, Harglow is certainly one, and Puget Gold. Those are very good varieties that do well on the coastal region, and they will take some rain, which is important. On the peaches, however, lots of them around in nurseries. They're just coming in right now, but the frost peach has been pretty much the one that's most resistant to leaf curl, and the Red Haven is still an old favorite. There's a lot of new ones out there as well, but here's the thing. With peaches, you have to grow them up against your building, your barn, fence, garage, whatever, on the south or west side, so that they have a little protection from the rain. You need to fan them out against the wall. They cannot have the rain. You get the peach leaf curl fung and everything goes haywire. So south facing direction, west facing direction, and up against the wall tight, and fan them out. You will have amazing peaches. I got 200 peaches last year. Really excited.
Oh, wow. That is an impressive haul, Brian. We've got an email from Sharon in Comox, and she writes, my Hoya seems well established. How do I get it to flower? What would you recommend as an appropriate nutrition solution?
Glad to see that because Hoyas have been really popular. There's so many new varieties out there. And absolutely right here, they're more difficult to flower. Secret is to put them in an east or north window. Put them in a spot where they get a little bit of coolness of the window. And the other secret is if you can open the window a crack, get the temperatures down. And I would say probably in Fahrenheit, about 50 degrees, and in Celsius, 10, 12 degrees. If you can get the temperatures around that area for a couple of 3 weeks, that initiates the flowering on Hoyas. Really, really important for that. Incredibly important.
All right, we've got a call now from Chris in Vancouver. Hi, Chris. What's your question for Brian?
Hi, Brian.
Hi.
I inherited some Ito peonies from my father's garden before he passed.
Wow, good. The Itos are the absolute epitome of peonies. They're wonderful.
Well, the seedlings came from my uncle in England, and they flowered for him all the time. I cannot get them to flower since I transplanted them. I guess it's probably about 6 or 7 years ago now.
Okay. Couple things about peonies which are really important, and I'm so glad you brought this up because over the next few weeks a lot of people are going to be planting them. They do not like a rich soil. They want a very open, porous, well-drained soil. We have many growers in the Sumas Flats, for example, growing peonies everywhere by the gazillions out there. But the soil, they don't like a lot of nutrient. They want it very open, porous, and well-drained. That's the secret. But if you've been planting it and it's established and it's coming up and it's not blooming, what I do is basically no nitrogen at all if you possibly can. And you want lots of phosphorus and potash. Sometimes you'll find that in a store. It's called Bloom Booster. We used to have More Bloom, which was 0, 10, 10. So shut off any nitrogen, no rich soil, and basically if you can get that low nitrogen, high phosphorus type of fertilizer around them, that will begin the process of getting you blooms. And that's a very good question. I'm really glad you brought that up.
All right, Chris, I hope that helps with your peonies. Good luck to you. We want everybody to get their calls in today before we let you go, Brian. So call us at 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. But we've got you until 1 o'clock, so plenty of time. Dennis in Vancouver, what is your question for Brian today?
Hi, Brian. My question is, I've got a front lawn which I've been fighting the safer beetles for years, and what I would like to do is, this year the raccoons have totally butchered my lawn. There's hardly any grass left. What I'd like to do is put in a ground cover. Anything you would suggest? My front lawn would get sun for about half of the day, or maybe a bit longer than that.
Okay. So, but here's the question. Between, say, 10 or 11 on a hot summer day until 3 in the afternoon, sun at that time or not?
Probably only till 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock, okay. But you're getting some sun, so that's important to keep in mind. And I'm not trying to be mean here at all, but the best ground cover we have is grass. Okay, seriously, because and I see that I can give you dozens of ground covers right now, but the problem is the weeds blow in, and you're weeding all the time. The ground covers are painful, even once they're established. But just so you know, if it's a shady area, probably your most successful would be the Japanese spurge, or Pachysandra terminalis. It's evergreen. It grows about 6 to 8 inches high. Looks beautiful all year round. Very, very hardy. And once it gets established, there is not one weed going to get through there. Let me tell you. So if you can tend something a little bit higher, and it's a shady situation, the Japanese spurge is certainly the very best in terms of being something really good. Just an alternative, though, just so we know, because folks are really brought up such a really hurtful point here for so many people. There are chafer-resistant grasses out there. I want you to know that. They contain clover, they contain different types of grass seeds and wildflowers and so on. But the point is, there is grass alternatives that look nice, can be mowed like a grass, but they have no interest at all for the beetles laying their eggs there. So that's one thing I want to keep in mind. But ground covers, it's a good idea. A lot more maintenance until they get up and they get established. But under your conditions, probably this Pachysandra would be the best condition to get you a foolproof, very beautiful looking green, and you can plant and put a lot of shrubs around it as well. So an option for you there.
All right, Dennis, I hope that helps. Brian, we need to find a dog-resistant one for my backyard, because Bruce just tears up my grass every day. We'll get a call in now.
Very common for all of us, yes.
I know. Russ in Nanaimo, you have got a call about one of my favorite plants.
Lavender.
Yes, lavender.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, guys. Happy Friday. Quick question. Obviously, once lavender gets established, it's the easiest thing to grow on the coast here. But I took some cuttings, Brian, last winter from my existing lavender, and they did quite well over the summer. And then during the wintertime, they all turned gray, and they're all looking like they're dying. And I'm wondering what I did wrong. Was it too cold, too wet? Do I need to really baby these things, or what's your suggestion?
Yeah, Russ, I don't think they're dead. Lavender, for the most part, over the winter, depending on the conditions, can look quite ugly and unsightly. That's the reality. We have lots of neighbors around us in our neighborhood who prune them extremely hard in about August, and they really fill up beautifully, lots of new growth. I think, Russ, they're young right now, and young lavenders are more problematic than the other ones. Look very carefully at the woody stems. If you could please just take some shears and do a little bit of pruning only when you see new growth coming. If you see little bits of growth and budding out on the stems out there, that's a good sign. And if you want to know if they're alive, Russ, just take your fingernail and scrape the stems. If there's green just under the bark, you know they're going to be okay. But lavender doesn't look as prettiest at this time of year. So when you see new growth coming, good hard pruning, and slowly but surely they will start coming along. They want good drainage. That's absolutely essential. As you pointed out, over the wintertime, we've had a lot of rain. And other than that, no, they will be fine. And make sure you always get the hardiest lavenders. Those are the angustifolias, the so-called English lavender. Those are the ones that are all hardy. And there's about 30 or 40 varieties out there. But to this point, no fertilizer, nothing. Just scrape the stem to see if they're alive. They are. When the new growth comes, good hard pruning. And Russ, I know they'll flush out for you. They really will.
Hope that helps you, Russ. They'll be pretty again in spring. Brian, we've got an email that's come in from Naomi in the Upper Squamish Valley, and she writes, I have a beautiful Japanese maple, which is about 12 feet high. In the recent wet snowfall, a large branch broke off from the main trunk. It's still somewhat attached. So sad. I've previously glued together another split with Gorilla Glue and held it with a prop, and it has survived for years. Should I try this again? Also, the tree has been putting out seeds on wings. What does this mean?
Okay. All good questions, Naomi. First of all, number one, don't even think about trying to hold this branch together. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Bite the bullet at this particular time and take a pruning saw. Make sure you cut underneath first of all, so we don't scrape any bark off the tree, and take it out as soon as you possibly can. That will give the tree an opportunity to start filling in where that space is. And you might even, not now, but when the new growth is coming, and in the Squamish, in the Fraser Valley, and so on, don't prune your maples when they're dormant, the Japanese maples. Wait until they're vigorously putting lots of new growth out, and when you see that vigor coming, then go and prune in such a way that this area that's missing a big gap right now, the branches will start filling in. And it doesn't take long, 2-3 years, and you've got a beautiful tree again. But don't try and glue it together. Sometimes you put bolts through them and whatnot. That's just a temporary process and for cosmetic, but take it out as soon as you possibly can. Do your pruning later, and honestly, that tree will be back in good shape. The other thing about seedlings, that's a good thing. Sometimes plants get under stress. Very, very hot summer like we had last year, many days where it's very, very dry. The plant says, I'm under stress. I'm going to die. I want to produce seeds so I can reproduce. And that's all that's happening. That's a good thing. And a lot of them will fall down. A lot of them will germinate. And it's a source of many new little seedlings for you. So mine are doing the same. And I love collecting the seedlings as well, Naomi. So, a little bit of tough love here. Sorry, but we have to take it out.
That's what we need you for, Brian. You just tell it like it is. Brian in Comox, what is your question for Brian this afternoon?
Hi, Brian. I've got a 10-year-old cherry tree that has been fruiting pretty decently in the past, but last year it did something really weird. It blossomed out well. It started to fruit fairly well, but about halfway through the fruit development, it started to lose the fruit, and what was left on the ground was nothing but tiny raw seeds with no meat left on them at all.
It's the nature of sweet cherries. Not the sour ones, but the sweet ones. Our area out in Chilliwack used to be Canada's cherry growing capital. It was a huge thing here. The weather cycle changed in the late 50s and 60s, where we started getting rain exactly at the wrong time as the blossoms are opening and the leaves got fungal diseases and dropped off, the cherries dropped off, and all the orchards were taken out. The Okanagan right now, Castlegar, wonderful place up there for growing cherries and so on, but they need that dry climate. The wet is what we fight here. So bringing it back, as we say in the farming industry, next year. That's this year, by the way. So as long as we don't get that rain, that horrible time when the blossoms are just coming out and the fruit is forming, you'll be absolutely fine, because it's, again, the driest spot you have, good airflow, good air circulation, all those will help in terms of the location of the tree. And sometimes, Brian, even cutting some of the branches out to allow more sunlight in, to allow more air going through the tree, those are the only things you could do. I would say, too, also for anybody who's looking at cherry trees, Lapins, developed in the Okanagan, the world's #1 cherry, but Stella is a very good one. You want to get a self-fertile tree, you want to get them dwarf if you're thinking planting another one. Those are a couple of really good ones.
All right, Brian, I hope that helps. Chris in Kamloops, I understand you have a question about wisteria.
Yes. Hello, Brian. I have a 20-year-old wisteria, and it's only ever had flowers on it. It had flowers on it when we bought it. And I think the second year we had it, it had a few flowers on it, but since then, absolutely nothing. It makes lots of growth and foliage every year, but no flowers.
Okay. Chris, I have to be honest with you. There's a love-hate relationship with wisteria. Okay, seriously. We always say, well, come on, it's good, let's get it growing. And then it won't stop. It throws out too much growth. The secret to wisteria is, first of all, always buy a grafted variety. They are, prolific varieties are probably some of the very best, but you want to get the Japanese varieties that are grafted because they flower early and they keep on flowering. But the secret, Chris, and this is very important, is continually, as you get that rampant new growth coming everywhere, get rid of it. Cut it out, get rid of it. And you want to be able to save 4 or 5 nice branches and take those branches and allow them thicken up and grow to the point where they're the size of your forefinger or your thumb. Once you get to that size, those branches are blooming size, and they'll form buds along the stems. And if you could train them sideways or whatnot, but getting rid of all the bramble, the few branches to train them out so they're good and thick. And I would even put some like high phosphorus fertilizer on, even a 10, 15, 19 or something like that, so we stop the rampant growth, lower the nitrogen, and start getting those branches with the phosphorus and potash, getting them thicker and easier. So that's the way. So pruning like crazy, get it cleaned up, save your best branches, just value them, train them on an arbor, and you'll do nothing but looking at beautiful blossoms. Promise you.
I hope that helps. Brian, we have less than a minute left, but I want to get this question in quickly. Brad in Vancouver writes, I want to grow a California Reaper on a windowsill indoors where the window gets a lot of sunlight. A Carolina Reaper, sorry. Is that possible? My apartment gets 35% humidity.
Yeah, it is. Peppers are so easy to grow indoors and in containers as well. If he has any room outside in the summertime when it's established, but and you know that Carolina Reaper is the hottest pepper in the world, right?
I know. That's why I stay away from it.
You get third-degree burns with that sucker. Anyway, sorry. But yes, to answer the question, I'll start them about now.
Okay.
Good time to do that. They're longer crop, but yes, keep it all as light and bright as you possibly can, and yes, we can do that.
All right, Brian, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Brian Minter is our gardening columnist and joined us today from Chilliwack.